Hey friends, welcome to the new setup of the Authority Podcast. I am still E, I am still your host, and I am attempting to do this now with a video in addition to the audio. So if you're listening to this on just an audio platform, not much is going to change, but if you're watching me over on YouTube or here on Substack, hi, it's me. Last week we did an amazing interview with Chris Wallace, and I'm thinking of doing some more of those in the future because I really had fun with it, and Chris is a great friend of mine, and I have some other amazing friends who I really would like to invite to talk because I know a lot of excellent people with a lot of incredible advice. So this week, we are going to be talking about, are your writing goals setting you up to fail? And that is an unfortunate thing that a lot of us kind of deal with, right? You know, we're told we need goals for ourselves, for our writing, for our careers, and there's so many different conflicting answers on what kind of goals should look like. Some people say to shoot for pie in the sky stuff, miss, land amongst the stars kind of deal. Other people say, no, go with SMART, specific, actionable, measurable, and I don't remember all the acronyms for SMART, but the SMART goals method, right? Don't get me wrong, we need goals, one way or another, that we need them. But the advice on how to set them and achieve them can be really disparate and complicated because, as with so many things in writing, there's no one true way. And that is a reality for all of us. As an autistic person, my thing with goals is that if I don't hit a goal that I set for myself, I can get really upset. The bigger the goal, the more upset I am. I'm very black and white about my goals and what success looks like, and if I don't actually achieve that success, I can get awfully upset. I can be really mean to myself, and this is a problem. Once I lock in on what idea of success looks like, if I don't hit that, it's a mess. This can be really helpful sometimes if I'm really I know what my goals are and I work toward them really hard, doing what I'm doing right now. I'm still figuring all this out, and I set a goal to start putting things up on YouTube and Substack. But if I'm not accomplishing what I think I should be accomplishing in the timeline it should, that hamstrings me when I don't get there. And that hits me really hard when I think about how I'm supposed to be doing things. In fact, I just used the word should a second ago, and that brings us to my next point here. It's called the trap of should. And most of you who've been following this for a while know that I was in inpatient therapy for my mental health a few weeks ago. And one of the things we went over is the idea of should. Writers fall into these traps, and we struggle with that whole thing a lot. We compare ourselves to people who are at other places in their careers or in different markets entirely. Let me tell you, there's a difference between the goals of somebody who writes small town romance and somebody who writes high fantasy when it comes to the kinds of plannings and complexity and world building. Not just talk down about small town romance stuff. I love reading that kind of thing. It's so much fun. But you don't have to plan the socio-economic systems of entire countries and cities. It's a different kind of work, and readers have different expectations in those genres, right? So when we're looking at should, it's complicated. And if we're looking at should in the terms of our career, right, we should be at some particular point at a specific timeline, yeah? We think of that all the time. We should publish a certain way and a certain number of books per year. We should, and we hear that all the time, and it crawls into our brain, lays eggs, and turns into writer's block, anxiety, and problems of self-worth. That is exactly what it does. And that isn't to say that things in our industry don't come with rules. There are definitely rules on how to handle things like keywords and hiring editors, and there are things you need to pay attention to, and there are definitely shoulds you should lean into. But there are things you can also let go. And identifying what you need and what you can let go of is going to be one of those things that helps you create goals you can achieve without carrying a bunch of extra baggage. The next part here is talking about a realistic evaluation of our capacity. The first thing you want to consider when you're looking at your goals is whether or not that goal you're setting is achievable when it comes to your life and your situation. What seems reasonable for one person might be entirely impossible for somebody else. For example, I'm not just an author. I'm an editor, public speaker, book coach, map maker. I don't have as much free time to dedicate to my writing as I might like. And I also know my brain. I can't really write on my stuff when I'm editing for other people because my mindset is completely different. And I can't be in that headspace and write at the same time. So when I'm editing, which is a large chunk of my year, I'm not working on my personal writing, so that has to take a back seat. So is it imperative that I release a certain number of books per year to be a real author? No, it isn't, in fact. Right now, my editing is really where my money comes from. And I have to focus on that part of my career. It's important to me. I can't just ignore it because that's what keeps the lights on. So for me, my personal writing doesn't happen at a pace that my I or my readers might be super happy about. Like, I'm about a book a year author. Right now, sometimes I need to pivot and reevaluate where I'm at. Do I need to be editing right now, or should I be working on my next book? And those are very real thoughts that go through my brain. And that kind of evaluation is different for every single person who's doing the thing, right? So if you're a stay-at-home parent who's homeschooling your kids, you might have a lot going on, and you may not have as much time to write as somebody who has full-time employment and whose kids are in school. Because, in fact, you might have a space where the kids are still at school or have gone to school, and you can write, or whatever that space looks like. So be honest with yourself about your time and your availability to do the things that you want to do. Like, just be direct with yourself about all of these things. And you also need to account for stuff like disability, fluctuating energy levels, if you're sick. Don't be like wide-eyed optimism about this. Like, be honest with yourself. If you're just being wide-eyed optimism, you're gonna end up in trouble and set goals you can't achieve and end up really discouraged. And that is an unfortunate truth. Which kind of pairs into my next point here. Don't measure yourself against somebody else's stick. If I were to try and pit my success against somebody like Mal Cooper or Tony Lee, I would curl up into a ball and start crying because I am obviously not Mal Cooper or Tony Lee. Just saying. And it's, I've felt that experience. I didn't quit because I'm too stubborn. But every time I look at the people I hang out with and some of the writing conferences I run, I'm like, how did I get here talking to them, and why are they talking to me? Like, it's not like they're not amazing people, because they are. Mal is a delight. I love her to pieces. And Tony was a brilliant person to talk to. We sat around talking about reenacting and LARPing for a couple hours before I had any idea who he was. And Todd McCaffrey is a lovely, gentle person who reminds me of my uncle. Shel Honaker, Jace Carter. I mean, I could go on about the people I love to bits, and they're great. But I also hit a point during the conference a couple of times where I curled up into a ball in my shower up in my room and cried, because I am nobody by comparison. Like, I'm hanging out with people who have incredible and well-earned clout and power and industry, and they're amazing, and it affected me because I was comparing myself to them in ways that I had no business doing. These people are my friends, and they love me for me. They hang out with me because they like me. It's not about my book sales or how successful I am. They just like me. And here I was crying because I don't know why they're hanging out with me, because I'm not where they are. And it was a miserable experience. And I know that that is not how they think about me. They think of me as, oh, it's Ellis, my friend. They don't think of me as, oh, it's Ellis, the person who doesn't sell that many books a year. That's not what goes into their brains. And if it does, they're not my friends. But I know they don't think that way because I've talked to them. They're lovely people. And I share this experience because I know if I'm experiencing this as a public speaker, as somebody who's spoken at Author Nation, who runs a conference, who's been a professional editor for 17 years, if I'm experiencing that, I know that you guys are too. And if you look ahead at if you're looking at your careers and wondering what the hell you're doing wrong because you're not where these other people are, the reality might be that you haven't done anything wrong. In fact, you're leading a different life than those people are. I'm not Tony Lee. I am not Mal Cooper. I'm not Quinn Ward. I'm not Tammy Labrecque. I'm not all of these people that I look up to and admire and love and respect. I'm not Shel Honaker either. And believe me, if I were, I'd have better fashion sense. My God. But that comparison doesn't do anybody else favors. Like, that doesn't help me. It doesn't help my friends. And it destroys your motivation and self-worth. And it makes you feel like you're a nobody, going nowhere, doing nothing. And that's not a fair thing to think about yourself, because you're at the point you're at in your career. And how long it takes you to get to the next step and what the next step even looks like for you isn't the same as it would look for them. That's a reasonable thing. Which brings us to setting reasonable goals. And this is something I'm still working on myself. But your key to goal setting here is to find things you can achieve. If you go for pie in the sky things, great, but understand that they may not happen the way you're imagining they're going to happen, right? They may look different for you. And it's okay that those are dreams. Chase them, take action on them, take steps for them. But if you're trying to set that as the expectation, you might end up disappointed. On the other hand, your goals should be measurable and achievable, and they should be quantifiable. They should be things that you can look at and be like, okay, here's the steps I need to get to this next spot in my journey, which is that, you want to do this a piece at a time. And if you set your goal to be too broad and say, like, be successful, without any kind of metric for what success looks like, you're not going to know when you hit it. And you're not going to know how to hit it because it's too big. With that self-assessment I suggested you do earlier, think about what you can actually do. Like, you might not be able to write 5,000 words a day. Like, most people cannot write 5,000 words a day. But you might be able to write 500, or 50, or 5. Whatever that number is, what you think you can achieve, that's where you start. You can always add to that number over time, or subtract it, depending on, what's going on with you. But you can adapt these things in order to change what your plans are based on what real life does, because real life is oftentimes messy, and it doesn't usually follow a formula as much as we oftentimes wish it did. Be kind to yourself as you do this too. Like, I know my capacity for things is pretty low right now compared to where it is at other times, because, like I said earlier, my mental health took a hit, and I've been having some real struggle stuff going on. And that's a thing. And that is demanding a lot of my bandwidth. That is demanding a lot of my energy. So I'm having to navigate that while ensuring that my clients are getting taken care of, while ensuring that I'm doing the baseline stuff I need to do to take care of me, and that doesn't leave me a lot of room for other stuff. The situation I'm in will not last forever, and I know that. And I'll be able to continue doing more in the future. But sometimes seasons of life are just what they are, and we have to accept that. My kind of wrap-up thoughts on this whole thing is the be kind to yourself piece is the thing that I'm going to be leaning into a lot. Anytime somebody talks to me and tells me where they're at, I'm going to be coaching them to be kinder to themselves. I work with a lot of clients who treat themselves horrendously when they don't live up to expectations they set for themselves. And if you're one of my clients watching this, you know that I have done that to you, and if I haven't yet, I will in the future. Because those expectations might be unreasonable for where you are. I know people dealing with incredible trauma who are mad at themselves for being unable to act at their full capacity, despite the fact that they are going through absolute hell. And that's not right. People can't go through that and just, not be affected about it. It's like expecting a marathon runner to run with a broken leg and keep the same pace they would if they didn't have a busted leg. If their leg is broken, they're not running on it. And if they do, by some miracle of science and bad ideas, run, they're not going to meet the time they would if they're healthy. You have to adapt to the circumstances you're in. You have to give yourself grace and understand that your goals can change. Those are really important things to understand. It's more than just writing stuff too. Like, writing is really what I talk about here, and that's true, but our lives aren't linear. They're always forward, but they're not linear. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have, things that set you back a real good distance. You're going to have all kinds of stuff that's going to either boost you or get in your way. And we need to understand that those changes are just part of navigating life. And the winds blow whether we want them to or not, unfortunately. And those winds will affect our trajectory. We're like little sailboats, and wind sometimes is going to blow us off course. Your goal might not change, but understand that how you're approaching it and the pace at which you're approaching it might have to. That is just a reality. Do you have any goals that you're currently trying to set? Is there anything you are working on? Let me know in the comments or in the show, description. Just let me know. Like, reach out to me. Tell me what your goals are because I genuinely care. And the act of telling them to somebody else sometimes helps us cement them in our own heads and gives us a little bit of accountability. That's a really important thing that I'd like to hammer in. And finally, I have 2 books on the subject of writing. I have How to Write the Damn Book and How to Publish the Damn Book. Those are floating around out there, and I would love it if y'all could purchase those and help fund my ability to continue doing things like this. And if you want to work with me as an editor, my website is selfpub.me. So selfpub.me. Please reach out to me there. Let me know. I'm more than happy to take you in as a client, though please be aware that my schedule is kind of limited these days. I have a fair number of clients and I'm booking out of ways, so if you want to get on my schedule and you want to talk to me, now's the time. Thanks, friends. I will talk to you next week. Take care, stay safe, and stay warm out there.